Hello, everybody. We're going to wait a few minutes and see who else joins us, and then we'll get started here on the field. Hello, everybody. We're going to wait a few minutes and see who else joins us, and then we'll get started here on the field. So welcome to the Casey Easy here in Kansas City. We're going to do a field walkthrough. As you can see, we have a full field, and we will talk about the half field as well. We will be taking questions, and we will do that by typing the question into Twitch, and we have a monitor over here where I can see the questions, and we'll get to those as quickly as we can. I'd like to thank the Casey Easy and Casey STEM Alliance here in Kansas City for giving us access to the space, for not only setting the field up for a community field, but also allowing us to do the broadcast from the site here, as well as the man behind the scenes, Jeff Housley, who's behind the scenes running the cameras and doing all the setup for us for the meeting today. I'm Phil Wood, and I'm the coordinator in the Kansas City area for First Tech Challenge. And let's just get started here. So the meets this year are the same as you've been used to in the past. So there is a 30-second autonomous period where you will do some activities that we will talk about. There is a 2-minute driver control period, of which the last 30 seconds is an end game where you can score some additional points. So let's walk through some of the components on the field. You'll see me walk over to the left. That's where my monitor is for my questions. This is the tower. And as you can see that there are 3 targets. There's a high and a medium and a low. On a full field, the Blue Alliance can score here and here, but they have to score on the other goal tower for the middle. When you play a remote event, so assuming that it's the red, you set it up for red, then all three of these are eligible for you to score since this tower goal would not be available. In the remote event, the edge of the field will be right here. So you can see that it's the target areas and you have your power shots here, and then you would have a wall here. So let's take a step over here for just a second. This is the low cost goal. You can find that out under First Inspires FTC for under the normal where you would go for your game manuals. If you scroll down, there's a construction diagram to put these together. These are put together using boxes from Home Depot, and this construction here was done for less than $10. Then you would just figure out what you want to do for the wall. As a reminder, you would still need the wobble and you would still need to get the rings, but everything else there's a low-cost solution to. And again, these are the power targets up here that you would shoot at. The power shots, so these are the power shots. Again, these are plastic tubes that you would hit. There's a bar behind it where the human player can reset all of those. You can shoot these in any order and then reset them, and there's a particular time in the game when you would reset those. There are three target zones, the three red boxes here, and this is box C, B, and A. And we'll talk a little bit more about this during the autonomous period, but it's important to know which box was selected during the randomization because you'll get extra points by moving to that box and putting some things into that box. There is a white line here. This is the launch line. So if you want to shoot into the middle or the upper and potentially the lower, you have to be below this line. There are instances where you can drive up and drop into the lower, but not the middle and the high. But your robot has to be completely behind the line to take the shot into the tower goal. There is a starter stack. That's what this is. You can see that we have these, they're somewhat flexible rings, right? And the rings sit here, and the number that are put onto the starter stack is dependent upon the randomization on the field. Next is the wobble goal. So again, the wobble goal, hard plastic. You can see that it has a round bottom, hence the name wobble. And it will wobble, and it is possible to knock it over. And then you can place rings on that and do some other things during the game. There are 2 wobble goals per team. You can see the blues and the reds. This red line here, there's 2 red lines. Those are called the start lines, and we'll talk about those, but that's basically where you place your robot at the beginning of the game. One slight difference from this year in a remote event, the drivers can stand anywhere on this side. So if it's the red alliance that you've set up, they would stand on this side. If you're doing a half field with a blue alliance, of course, they would be on that side. And so that's a little bit different than you had last year. And then your human player stands behind the targets here and the power shots here so that they can reset this and then return rings back into the field. This field does not have it, but there will be navigation targets. Much like we've had for the last couple of years, you would have one that's here, one that's in the middle here, and one that's in the middle on the front wall up here. Any questions so far? Looks like we're doing good. So let's talk about the start of the game. Your robot has to be touching this front wall or breaking the plane of the front wall. And you must be breaking the plane of the start line. So in other words, on the start line somewhere, as well as touching the front wall. You can preload up to 3 rings. So you can take 3 rings and you can preload them on your robot. All the other rings need to go into the back here for the human player to use later in the game. So in your autonomous period, if you're going to score points with the rings, they have to be preloaded. Once we're, and you must load a wobble goal on your robot prior to the randomization. So you have a wobble goal and you can up to 3 rings. Then they'll do the randomization. Back in the old days, that was the roll of the dice. The system will do it for you, and you will either end up with 0, 1, or 4 rings here. So if it's a 0, that goes to box A. If it's 1, that goes to box B. And if it's 4, it goes to box C. So that's one way for your robot to know once they initialize what box they need to go to make something happen. To score points in autonomous, your robot would take the wobble goal and they would place it into the box that was selected during the randomization. That would be 15 points. So again, same rules as before. Breaks the plane of the line. So as long as you're in, you're good. When you are done with autonomous, your robot comes back and stands on the white line. So again, anywhere here on the white line, that scores 5 points. If you want to shoot your rings, you can place or launch a ring into the lower target, in which case it's 3 points. The top and the middle, you must launch. You can't place them in, so you have to be behind the white line, and it's 6 and 12 points. You'll notice that the top is a much smaller goal than the bottom. This is a good time to talk about when the rings go into the tower. There's a net in the back. Sometimes those rings will hang up on that net a little bit. It is okay for the human player to reach in and pull that through. It still gets scored, but the human player should keep these chutes clear as soon as the rings are in there. We won't return those rings back onto the field until autonomous is completed. If you are able to stand behind this line with your robot and shoot and knock one of these over, then that's 15 points as well. So driver control. What the human player will do is they will return all of the rings to the field. And they do that through a return chute that's right here on the side. One of the things you'll want to note is that when that happens, it is very random where these rings might go. And that design is on purpose, but you'll want to think about how you handle that during gameplay. It is important that the human player return all rings into play as soon as possible. He can handle more than one ring at a time. He cannot reach into the return tube and try to direct where that ring is going, they would just slide it into the uh, return chute and it'll come out onto the field of play. What you noticed is they do roll around. You heard this in the last meeting. So if you're going to have a field that has no wall on this side, that can be a little bit problematic. So you want to set something up to keep those rings in play and they don't just go over a sideline that you might have. Yeah, you can't stock up rings. Then during, it's kind of the same rules as during autonomous. So in the lower goal, you can place or launch. In the medium and high, you can only launch, and those points are 2, 4, and 6. And it's interesting to note, during this time period, there are no points for hitting the power shot. This would be a good time for, if you had knocked one over during autonomous, for your human player to do the reset, because that will be important during the end game, because then these come back into play and it'll be important to have those reset forward. During the end game, one option is to take your wobble goal, grab it, and put it on one of the start lines. And if you do that, that's 5 points. You'll notice that there is a drop zone, which is on the spectator side of your field over here. If you're able to take that wobble stone and place it over the wall onto the drop zone, then that is 20 points. You can note in the rules it does not actually have to be standing up. So if it's over to the side like this, then that counts as well. But in my reading, it does not, I do not believe it counts if it's leaning up against the wall. It has to be supported wholly by the drop zone. Yeah, and like I suggested earlier, there is a grace period, but you want to get these reset because these count points in the end game. So that's the walkthrough of the field. Do we have, what kind of questions do we have? I don't have any on the feed yet. So what we'll do is we'll hang out on the feed for a little while, but that's the end of the presentation and the walkthrough. Um, and if you have questions, shoot them up on the screen and we'll get to those as they come online. Thank you for your time and have a safe season and hope to see you soon. Hopefully we can have a live event at the end of the season. Thank you. Yeah, so there was a question about your ability to score because there's no other alliance playing defense against you. I do think that is an excellent point, and that's absolutely true. I do think to some extent also a little bit of an advantage because the field is smaller, so the rings won't roll as far away. Um, it is random, but you don't have to go as far to collect multiple rings, and you can hold 3 rings at a time and score points. Yes, that's exactly what I said. Yep, exactly. Okay, it's final call for any questions. If not, we'll stop the stream and we can jump to another call or get on with our day. All right, have a great day. See you soon.